One, did Jeffrey Epstein actually kill himself? Will we ever know? Will the files ever be revealed on Jeffrey Epstein and whether or not Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK from the schoolbook depository? And other stories. Today's Quick Hits. 2, playing for Bear Bryant and playing for Nick Saban, a father-son duo that's part of the stories behind the tide that binds. Focus on the Alabama Crimson Tide. 3, what's left for us, you and I, we as a nation, to discuss when it comes to sports? The NFL? Hockey? It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand, terrestrial radio, coast to coast, but by also subscribing at Spotify or on Apple. We're here every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time at Fox News YouTube and Fox News Facebook, where someone has let the dogs out. Facebook numbers absolutely exploding. That's a personal triumph for us here at the Will Cain Show, but it also suggests something has changed. There's an interesting article we're going to hit on in just a moment where a couple of years ago, Clay Travis, the founder of Outkick, went back and forth with Mike Florio, the founder of Pro Football Talk. Bobby Burek wrote it up because Mike Florio is very upset about the death of DEI. But looking back on their history and their discussion, Travis asked Florio at one point, why have you never hired a black writer at Pro Football Talk? Mysteriously, a few months later, Mike Florio hired his first black writer at Pro Football Talk. Is that an admission of guilt? I don't think it necessarily is. But if your numbers on Facebook hover around a certain figure for years, and then we're good, and we have numbers climbing everywhere we go right now. But to see our numbers explode on Facebook in a relatively short amount of time suggests, I don't know, some admission of guilt. Could we see that same admission of guilt over on YouTube? Yes, please, and thank you. Yesterday, we let the dogs out here on the Will Cain Show. Saint joined us on the program, and my new Doberman revealed my bare feet during the program.
Yikes.
And we got a lot of great feedback, including that Saint should perhaps become a permanent fixture of the show. So maybe I'll set a dog bed up in the corner of the studio and he can just hang. My only slight concern is that he will wander and rummage and unplug the T1 TPS report cable that airs this program. I'm surrounded by cables in a very small amount of space, and I am so technologically ill-informed that it does feel like someone could trip and this show never gets on air again. So I don't know about letting a 75-pound semi-athletic Doberman stumble through the studio is the best idea. But I'm going to entertain it. I'm going to entertain the idea. I entertained social media last night by posting and introducing Saint on my Instagram and on my Twitter. I want to share with you guys 2 pieces of feedback / criticism that I got. I always actually love when I say love, I have the same bad habits of everybody else who stands in front of a camera or sits in front of a microphone. I can get 100 compliments, but for some reason, the criticism bangs around between my ears for a little bit longer. So, I read comments during the Will Cain Show on Fox News. Yes, I've seen the multitude of comments. Will, stop nodding your head. But I also saw last night on social media the following pieces of criticism. Don't you dare load your dogs up in the bed of your truck and drive around. There was a picture of Saint and Violet in the back of my truck. And there was a half a dozen people that felt like this was a high crime and misdemeanor. I don't know if that's just a different era that I grew up in, but that is a huge privilege and treat. You get to load up and let the wind blow through your face. I mean, that's dogs living on top of the world. And let's be honest. Okay, I let them, hold on 2 days, I let them hop in the cab of the truck as well. We'll do that from time to time. But are we all going to sit here and pretend like you're strapping on a seatbelt? And if that's the case, how much safer is the cab than the truck bed? What's up, two-a-days?
No, I like doing that as a human being, sitting in the back of a truck bed, riding down the road. We used to do that all the time growing up. It's amazing.
Of course. So I don't know what this is, like this divide I have. I think to be fair or to be accurate, a lot of, I think, female commentators, that this is a very bad form for me to load my dogs in the truck. When I lived on a ranch in Montana, we had a flatbed truck. I'm talking, if anyone doesn't understand, that's, no walls. And we loaded the dogs up and they rode around on the flatbed. Now, it was mainly on country roads and around the ranch, but
here comes PETA.
I mean, they figure it. They figure it. They have great balance, Violet better than Saint. But they can figure it out. Here's the other comment that I got, because I posted how it's going with Saint in discipline camp and so forth. That his only real problem these days is he's replaced humping Violet with cuddling humans. And he desperately wants to be on forbidden couches and in bed. And this is how we operate. There is a dedicated couch in the game room where dogs are allowed to get on. There's a window seat, like in a bay window with a cushion on it. Dogs are also allowed to get on, although that's dominated by Violet, where she can sunbathe. She's working on a serious case of skin cancer. And those are the two, people-oriented places that you're allowed to get, but there's limitations. And I'm not going to pretend that we're better than we are. Have there been occasions when a dog has jumped up in bed and cuddled? Yes. But I try not to make it an expectation or a habit. They're dirty, man, and they shed. And I don't want them on a nice couch or where company's going to sit, And we have to really clean their paws every time they come inside. But I just think there should be boundaries when it comes to dogs. Other people commented, are they a member of your family or not? Let them on the couch or the bed.
It's very pretentious.
I don't know if any three of you guys are dog guys. Do you allow them everywhere you go?
Hell yeah.
So I'm a big dog guy. I had my German Shepherd. She's back home because we couldn't have her down in New York. But no on the bed. Trained her very well, but no on the bed. And me and my wife are looking to get a dog now because we love them very, very much. And I think I have to set the precedent that there's no bed. I like my space.
And you live in an apartment in New York City, so you probably don't have multiple living spaces, meaning couch in this room, couch in that room. Like, if you lived in that situation, I would more understand, okay, he or she is allowed on the couch. But I don't think they should be allowed on every piece of furniture in a home. Like, there's a luxury. If that's what you want to do in your house, fine, but not in my house. There's a luxury item piece of furniture for them. You know what I mean? Designated. This is the room where I'm allowed to get on the couch. Yeah, I just I like boundaries. I like discipline when it comes to the dogs. And right now he feels the same way as the people posting on Instagram. Am I a member of the family or not? Do I get on the couch?
So many experts online.
Or not?
Are all the humans allowed on those couches too, or only?
Yeah,
the
humans are allowed on the couch, and they're not covered in plastic. For only when company
You're not that old.
over.
You're not that old yet.
But I know it's good to share Saint and all of your opinions, bring you all together, and sure, you check it out on Instagram or on X, and you'll see the pictures of Saint. All right, we are going to talk to a father-son duo who are behind The Tide That Binds, the University of Alabama docu-series that is now up at Fox Nation. They have a fascinating perspective where one played for Bryant and one played for Nick Saban. Before we get to that today, let's get to story number one. Okay, for story number one today, we have, I believe it is, 4 stories in quick hits going to be taken through us by the most electric men in television. Tinfoil Pat, Don Tinfoil Pat. The floor is yours, Don.
That's right, Will. It's quick takes with Tinfoil Pat here. Big story. Everyone's asking, where are the Epstein flight logs? Where are the JFK files? We were promised to have them up pretty quickly, and Attorney General Pam Bondi even said on Sunday that they were on her desk right now. So, play the clip.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Not yet. Will we ever know the truth? Did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? Who was he connected to? Who was connected to Jeffrey Epstein? Who killed JFK? So we actually have a morning call. I have a schedule now that includes 2 morning calls, one for the Will Cain Show television show and one for the Will Cain Show digital program. And the digital program call, which is everyone you hear and see on this show right now, is designed to set some level of expectation about what we're going to talk about on the show. Today, unfortunately, it was dominated for 45 minutes with a debate over Jeffrey Epstein. So the issue is as follows. Will we ever know the truth? Donald Trump said in an interview last summer with the hosts of Fox and Friends Weekend when pressed by Rachel Campos Duffy that he would release the files on JFK and MLK. And he was hesitant but maybe best described as open when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. Why would Donald Trump be hesitant? Now, I think the theories behind that hesitancy, and a hesitancy that might be behind what you hear from Pam Bondi right now, are worthy of exploration because they tell us a greater story. There are news reports out today that there might be resistance within the FBI and other places to releasing these files. And the suggestion would be in defiance of Donald Trump. Even Pam Bondi slow-rolling it, and she was pressed by Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna as recently as yesterday, suggests some level of resistance towards bringing this to the public. Anna Paulina tweeted or posted on X, there's a massive war happening in the intelligence agencies right now. The corruption being exposed is actual treason. And then this was in response to a post by Charlie Kirk where he grabbed a post and he quote tweeted it. It says, on the CIA's 7th floor, home to top leadership, some offices are also quietly discussing how mass firings and buyouts allegedly already are offered to staff, risk creating a group of disgruntled former employees who might be motivated to take what they know to a foreign intelligence service. Okay, this is all connected. Okay, I am going to assume Pam Bondi is not within the first 2 weeks of her position as Attorney General is defying Donald Trump. I have to assume that all of this is at the direction of Donald Trump. So let's start with Epstein. What would be the theories on why we'd be slow to get the files on Epstein? Well, the headline that they would run on MSNBC is Donald Trump is implicated in whatever went on with Epstein. A second possibility would say Donald Trump's friends are implicated in whatever went on with Jeffrey Epstein. Or a third possibility, which is the Jeffrey Epstein story is much deeper than anyone can fully appreciate or has been discussed in a public forum. We have discussed it here on the Will Cain Show. As a short, abridged Cliff Notes version of that, the question remains, was Jeffrey Epstein connected to a foreign intelligence service? Was he an asset working in a extortion and compromise program here at the behest of a foreign government? There's a lot of fascinating details, a lot of eyebrow-raising connections, specifically when it comes to Ghislaine Maxwell and her father, who was a London media titan, and their connections to Israel. So the question is, what, if anything, could slow roll these releases, and what, if anything, will be withheld if Pam Bondi is telling us the truth? There's nothing surprising in these files. I personally have trouble with quote-unquote conspiracies when they require great amounts of people to do two things: be competent and quiet. I just have trouble wrapping my minds around those two possibilities. I just don't think there's enough competent people to engage in a conspiracy who can then turn and keep their mouth shut. But I'm not an idiot. I do know there are honeypot schemes. I do know that even among allies, there is spying. I do know that there is a lot that goes on that does require some level of coordination and would keep the public from ever really getting to know. I went to the JFK Memorial Museum a few months ago. We talked about it on the show, right? And honestly, as I sit there and I feel like I've read a lot and I feel like I've watched a lot and I feel like I've now been there, I have trouble with any theory that doesn't really rely on Lee Harvey Oswald from the School Book Depository. I don't really buy fully. I think there's some weird stuff about the bullet, the magic bullet. I don't buy that it was hard to pull off those shots. If you stand there, by the way, it is not a big, complicated shot. It's really not. And 3 shots in the amount of time that they allotted him, I do think it's very possible. Now, that doesn't mean there's not some conspiracy or cover-up or something that put the wheels in motion that led Lee Harvey Oswald down that path, right? I mean, there's some weird stuff about Lee Harvey Oswald and the Soviet Union and connections to intelligence services that it's just hard to ignore. But my suspicion is if, for example, on both of these stories, and then finally, the little bit I know about MLK, all I know is MLK was highly surveilled by the FBI, highly followed by the FBI, that J. Edgar Hoover had Martin Luther King Jr. like near a top of an American subversive list. So if there's stuff in there that is beyond, pedophile ring, this, that, like that level of discourse on this doesn't do it for me because, and I might be naive on this, and we discussed this on our call this morning, I have trouble wrapping my minds around a ton of powerful dudes that want to subvert the law when it comes to young women. That doesn't mean I don't think it happens, but like the quote-unquote pedophile ring is just harder for me to accept as a plausibility than there's some deeper stuff here when it comes to the intelligence communities. And if I'm right, if that's the case on all 3 of these things, I don't think we ever get to know, even despite Donald Trump's promises. I think if there's a release, we're going to be inundated with papers that really, in the end, shed no new light. And some dudes on X will post, bombshell, oh my God. And we'll all read it for a minute. And we're like, I don't really know that this tells us anything new. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like we're headed down the path. And I think I have a suspicion as to the reason that there are going to be high-level people. They're like, publics just can't. This didn't happen during the first Trump administration either, right? High-level people like, you can't know. You can't know. And you know what? They would let you know if there was a pedophile ring that a bunch of billionaires were involved in. That's the type of thing I think eventually would blow up. I give you Diddy. You'll probably get to know on Diddy almost everything.
Yeah.
But these other ones that have deeper things geopolitically, I don't think we'll ever get to know. Go ahead, Two-Days.
No, I think plus there's a lot of just information thrown out around all these things. So the more information thrown around, you just don't know what's true. They could put something in front of our face and we might not even believe it because it's like, well, yeah, I kind of heard that, but that seems like a conspiracy. But you can't really prove that to be the thing. And I mean, a lot of these things, I like to believe in Occam's razor. We talked about this before. I don't know what I find harder to believe with this. The Mossad thing, and that seemed a little bit more in the conspiracy realm than just kind of the simpler, like people are really messed up and do messed up things like this. But I don't know that we'll know, and I guess it's whoever's wanting to,
Go ahead, James. You had your hand up. What's up?
Yeah, and I mean, to your point on the fact that it's stuff that'll come out, people say bombshell, it's nothing new. We saw that with the MLK stuff. I was watching the Nixon movie from the 90s the other week, and they were talking about the same MLK files that people claimed were bombshells on Twitter like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And with the JFK thing, me and James have the same thought. Maybe it was just as simple as it was just an intelligence failure, and it was kind of embarrassing. So maybe they just hit it, and it was a lot simpler than we thought it was. Just because
Lee Harvey was on I believe this is correct. Lee Harvey was on a watch list, and Lee Harvey was visited by the FBI. Now, I don't know. I think there's probably more to it than simply failure. But
we see school shooters that are visited by the FBI, and they still are able to perform.
There's a meme
Correct.
about it. The Bart Simpson meme where it's like, say the line, and it's like, he was on our radar, and everyone cracks up.
Right. Okay. Tinfoil Pat. Story number 2. Take it away.
Story number 2. Millionaire Bill Burr is not a fan of billionaires, and he made it pretty clear in this clip here.
The people that are struggling out there because of these f***ing billionaires, and they got us all arguing liberal and conservative. We got to stop doing that. Like, I am so tired of hearing about people going to bed worried about what's going to happen next week. There is so much fucking money in this country. And there's so much work being done, you know. And if you work a full fucking week at a job, you should be able to pay your fucking rent. You shouldn't have to go out and get a fucking job and still be struggling. It's bad for the country. Because then the kids don't see their parents and they're not getting the upbringing that they need. It's so fucking, these fucking billionaires, they need to be put down. You know, like fucking rabid dogs. They're like rabid with fucking greed and just going out and just dividing everybody.
So we live in a clip economy. We just do. So I'm tempted to ask you guys, what's the context? But I don't even presume that any of you guys actually heard his longer conversation. I don't know what he's referencing. If he's referencing DOGE cuts as a social safety net system for people that's being cut away at the behest of billionaires, I don't know. My thing on this is, and I want to be consistent and coherent with myself. If I rewound the clock 15 years to a young Will Cain who was on CNN, I would have been reflexively antagonistic to what you just heard from Bill Burr, because there's so many opportunities to be. Like, first of all, he conveniently focuses on billionaires and not millionaires, and he's a millionaire. My suspicion is he's a tens of millions of millionaire several times over. I don't know what Bill Burr's net worth is, but I'd probably put the over-under at 20 to 30 million. And so he conveniently focuses on billionaires over whatever's going on with millionaires. So then it makes me think, well, what is he pointing to with billionaires in particular? They're the problem. But again, to be consistent and coherent, I have, over the past 5 years, also thought that the wealthiest people in America have really failed America. Now, I said that in their weakness, not in their conspiracy. Their weakness to give in to DEI, to give in to woke, to not stand up to any of the insanity for the past 5 years, to do business in China, to not focus on America, bringing jobs here. That they showed no patriotic duty. They showed only a fidelity to the bottom line. So I have criticized that class over the past 5 years. But as we sit today, if he's talking about DOGE and government cuts, well, I mean, and then, so are we doing seriously, like when I say this now, it's a joke, but are we doing the MSNBC thing? I watched like 3 hours of MSNBC last night. Had to see the final show for Joy Reid, which rolled into nap time during Jen Psaki, and then Rachel Maddow burning it down after that. Boy, she went after the bosses at MSNBC. But when I say the MSNBC thing, is it like, oh, the billionaires want their tax cuts, so we're cutting DOGE? Like, that's not what's going on here. We have a fat government. Fat is even an understatement. Obese government, morbidly obese government, who runs the 40 as fast as a morbidly obese person would run the 40 to get things done. And we need a cut. And I care about the people. I do. I had this conversation over breakfast today. I care about those, quote unquote, in the bottom, whatever, quarter, 20, 10% that we're talking about. But I don't think their savior is government largesse. I don't think their devil is DOGE. Go ahead, 2 days. You have what Bill Burr is worth?
Yeah, when the subject came up, Bill Burr was reading a fan letter from a millennial single mom who had written in to ask about professional women's sports, but lamented about not having much time to watch them between raising 2 children and struggling to make ends meet while balancing a full-time job. So he was kind of just talking.
What does that have to do with billionaires?
Like Bill, I think like sports owners, sports teams, people, any billionaire that tells us how to live our life or that weighs in on society at all, he sees as not relevant to the conversation because they just try to pin us against each other so they make more money.
Go ahead, tinfoil.
He also was very positive toward the Ouija, the healthcare shooter.
Yeah.
So he's doing a lefty populism thing.
Yes.
That's basically what he's doing, a lefty populism thing. Okay. What do you got, tinfoil?
So, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk.
Yeah, boy.
Our friend of the program, Bobby Burak, wrote up a little piece about him. Mike Florio said that with two of the supposedly co-equal branches of government not currently in the mood to even acknowledge such issues, it leaves the task of ensuring fairness to the courts in regards to DEI. And then he also said, where are all the white cornerbacks?
But he said that
something?
facetiously.
Yeah, with
Oh, yeah.
in sarcastic
In
font.
sarcastic tones, yes.
Is that how you do it? Where you do a lowercase letter, an uppercase letter, back and forth? Which,
That's
by the way,
our-
how much time does that take?
A lot. That's
It's
sarcastic
a lot.
font.
I've done it a few times.
Don't do
and
it to your
takes-
significant other. It doesn't work out. I promise you.
Is that sarcastic tone or crazy tone?
It's like,
right?
why do you do? That's the tone it is. Like, why aren't there white cornerbacks? That's the tone, pretty much.
Yikes.
Have you
That
ever
was in
noticed, does your
response
wife do
to-
this? Go ahead, tinfoil.
That was in response to a report by USA Today that white men have filled the last 29 vacant offensive coordinator positions.
Oh,
I
okay.
missed that part.
And does your wife ever do stupid voice for other people? Right? You know, you hear, and it's always saying, and and then every once in a while she accidentally impersonates you, and it's the same one.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are we doing here? I can tell that's the same thing you did for Bob,
Yeah.
and you were making fun of Bob.
When a girl does boy
stupid.
voice, they start talking in that like deeper, kind of dumb, I'm a male voice.
Yeah, my wife, all she has to do is just talk really low, and you sound like this. I'm
Fee,
like,
fi,
okay,
fo,
thanks.
fum.
DEI's dead. DEI's dead. I don't care. I don't want to hear about the offensive coordinators. It's dead. You're playing the most out-of-date music there is. I saw a clip of Cam Newton in this black billionaire. I think his name is Bryant. Last name is Bryant. I'm not sure. Really good. And he was 100% like, it's dead. DEI is just dead. We want the best people. And then finally, you have 1 story, I believe, Patrick. It's about DOGE, right?
That's correct, Will. DOGE, and great, now I lost the page. DOGE is looking good. DOGE is looking good. The people want
Just send an
DOGE.
email?
It wasn't an email, and then I lost the email. Dadgummit.
Killing it.
I just got an alert that
know.
Patrick just sent an email.
Oh, I sent an email?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm it's really,
And
yeah,
you just
I'm
sent
all
a
over the place
text
here.
to the group chain. You just sent 3 texts to the group chain. You just said quick takes. It's clever, LOL.
No, I
Which,
sent
by
that
the way,
like
you're
20
saying-
minutes ago.
It's not quick, is your point, right? Which you should have done it in sarcastic voice and
No.
tone.
I was saying
Lowercase,
takes.
uppercase.
It's quick takes, Patrick.
Quick takes. You said quick hits. It's based off the time of your time at First Take. That was the joke.
Is it?
Anyway.
I didn't get the branding.
That was
Don't
the
worry,
branding.
Patrick. I got you. The new Harvard Harris poll, I just want to share this with you. While everybody else freaks out about DOGE, I just want to let you know how the American people feel about DOGE. Do you believe the current level of U.S. federal government debt is sustainable or unsustainable? 67% unsustainable. Do you think the U.S. government should move in the next few years to balance the budget, or is that unrealistic and it should continue to run significant deficits? 83% move to balance the budget. To reduce budget deficits, do you think we need to reduce government expenditures or to increase taxes? 83% reduce government expenditures, only 17% increase taxes. And finally, do you think that we are in need of a full examination of all government expenditures, or should we not get in the way? 77% need a full examination. 67% to 83% range in support of what is happening at DOGE, no matter what they scream or cry about on MSNBC. The tide that binds the University of Alabama, father-son, Father that played for Bear Bryant, son that played for Nick Saban. That's next on The Will Cain Show. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made, and I was shocked. He's in his 80s, and he's still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change, and he says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing, too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that if you can watch by going to chuckdefense.com/Cain or by clicking on the link in the description below this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/CAIN and click on the link in the description box below to watch the video. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than me. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking the link in the description box below. chuckdefense.com/Cain. 2 generations of Alabama Crimson Tide. Next on The Will Cain Show. ESPN has dropped Major League Baseball. That led to a question, what's left that brings us all together? What sport? NFL? Maybe just NFL quarterbacks? Maybe college football? And maybe USA versus Canada when it comes to hockey. That's coming up in just a little bit here on The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe, please, at Apple or Spotify. Then you can download it. It'll show up in your feed. You'll always have The Will Cain Show whenever it fits your commute or your life. Or if you want to hang out with us live, which we always love, that's just where we are, 12 o'clock Eastern time, foxnews.com, Fox YouTube, and Fox Facebook. Set a reminder, and then jump in the comments section. We bring you into the Willisha. Okay, Fox Nation has a new series out. It's entitled The Tide That Binds. It focuses on the Alabama Crimson Tide. And here's a little bit of what it looks and sounds like on Fox Nation. For those listening on Spotify or Apple, those listening on podcast or radio, it's incredible footage from down the tunnel and onto the field as the Alabama Crimson Tide take to the stadium. Taking now to the Will Cain Show is Jeremiah Castille. He's a former All-American at the University of Alabama. He played under Coach Bear Bryant. And I believe, Jeremiah, if I have this correctly, you're also now the team's chaplain. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, sir. That's correct. This will be my 24th season.
Nice. 24 years with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And his son, Caleb Castille, who's also with us right now. He also played at Alabama under Coach Nick Saban. By the way, Caleb is the executive producer of the Tides That Bind inside Alabama football at Fox Nation. Gentlemen, glad to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having us, Will.
Caleb, let's start with you. This wasn't easy. I have to think this was hard. So a week ago, I'm just going to tell you something, not to brag, okay, but on the Fox News channel, I get some big time people. I've interviewed Kevin Costner, The Rock, the Senate majority leaders, and so forth, the Secretary of Defense. Booking the schedule for head coach Kalen DeBoer, not easy. So what I know is hard is you getting all this behind-the-scenes access. Even though you're an Alabama legacy family, the Castilles, this had to have been hard, man, because once you're at a program the size of Alabama, it's not like, hey, let's throw this little behind-the-scenes thing together. This is something that requires, even though he's your dad, blessings from the high priest at Alabama.
I mean, yeah, well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, man. I was actually having this conversation with my dad the other day, and I was like, man, I really haven't wrapped my head around it, Will, the fact that, God allowed me through my dad and everything that our family has invested there to have this opportunity. So, man, I'm just first and foremost thankful to the Lord that He has allowed me to have this gift of storytelling and just this journey we've been on at Alabama, really starting with my pops back in him deciding to go to Alabama. And so just this whole thing coming full circle from my dad playing under Coach Bryant. Both of my older brothers, Tim and Simeon, both played at Alabama as well. And then coming down to me, you know, the walk on of the family, having to kind of go earn it. And then, going into entertainment and being able to do this. But yeah, Will, it was hard, man. It's a hard journey. And I'm sure as well, you know what I mean, how this business shakes out. There's a million different decision makers and cooks in the kitchen. But I will say, though, yeah, it definitely helped having, my dad having accomplished the things he did and having served the university as long as he has as chaplain and building relationships with everyone from board of trustees to Coach Saban to, staff members.
Yeah. Right. You're protecting the brand, man. This is the brand now.
Yeah.
This is the Crimson Tide. So I have so many follow-up questions for you, Caleb, based upon what you just said. But, Jeremiah, I'll go to you now. So let's start with kind of how this starts. I'm tempted to ask you about Coach Bryant because I have a couple of questions about him. But tell me why and how you end up at Alabama.
Will, I'm a middle school kid, 7th, 8th grade. And in my elementary years, I used to pass by this prominent black family's house called the Lowe's. It was Woodrow Lowe who played at Alabama. And at the time, they were the prominent black family in our little community, and everybody would say, that's the Lowe's house, that's the Lowe's house. So anyway, I got to know him from afar. And when I got to middle school, I was a football fan, and one day I turned the television on a Sunday, and it was the Coach Bryant show. And Coach Bryant was, doing his show, and he said, and that's Woodrow Lowe on the tackle from Phoenix City, Alabama. And I'm like, man, I pass by his house every day. That's where the Lord really birthed the dream that one day I could play at Alabama.
So I've read The Junction Boys. That was a book that was important as a Texan. At some point, you got to read. Coach Bryant, before getting to Alabama, coached at Texas A&M. And it's the story of the training camp of Coach Bryant taking these A&M players, I think it's when he first took over the program, out to Junction, Texas, rough country, and a rough training camp that he put those boys through. You come away from that, I mean, as rough as it might have been under Coach Saban, Caleb, I don't know that it could be rougher than what I read about with Coach Bryant in Junction, Texas. Was that what it's like? Was it tough, Jeremiah?
Well, I'll tell you how tough it was.
Okay. Okay.
I still live by the principles that I learned at 18, 19 years of age that I learned from Coach Bryant. And my roommate and I used to say, there's no job that we'll get one day that we would. It was so hard. Coach Bryant literally broke in camp. He would break every player, from the strongest guy to the weakest guy. And if you were weak, you were going to, I saw guys leave at night in the middle of the night with their suitcases, headed down the back stairwell at Bryant Hall, and never to be seen or heard from again. That's how tough it was.
What was the point, by the way, in breaking people? Like, I can intellectually and philosophically get it, Jeremiah. Like, you break someone so that you can build them back up and hopefully build these men, not just as individuals, but as a unit, as a cohesive team. Was that the idea? Tear them down so I can bring them together and build them up?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that you're saying that, Will, the picture I got is one of the things, and that is identity. And when you're in the huddle and it's a 4th and 1, it's a 3rd and long, whatever, in those crucial situations, goal line, people don't think about it, but when guys are in the huddle and that play is being called, everybody's looking at each other. You're looking at the guy's eyes, and those eyes are saying something. And what you want the eyeballs to say is confidence. And we're going to go execute on this play because of what we've gone through, the tearing down and the building back up and the confidence that comes from that.
Caleb, this might be a better question for your dad because he's been around the program for 24 years, but you did play under Coach Saban. Do you see a lot of that same stuff we're talking about with Coach Bryant as what was used, maybe in different ways, because you can't get away with what Coach Bryant did in modern football anymore, but maybe new ways to accomplish the same thing with Coach Saban?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Another project that I've produced is called Nothing But a Winner. And I'll let you know, Will, when that's coming out. And but basically that story, not to plug it, but to plug it, that you asked about Coach Bryant. This is a documentary that tells the story, the history of football at the University of Alabama. And we start with Coach Bryant and his process. And so you get this compare and contrast between Coach Bryant, all the coaches in between, and Coach Saban, right? So having played for Coach Saban and lived in a house with a man who played for Coach Bryant, obviously him living through those stories, all of those lessons and principles being applied to our home, and then me going and playing for Coach Saban, it was I'm like, wow, these men mirror each other so much in their approach. And to your point, Will, yeah, of course, Coach Saban couldn't do the things that Coach Bryant could do, but I will tell you, I bet if it was legal, he would. Yeah, I guarantee you, man,
right.
if he could do it, he would. And Coach Saban, what I love, man, he just put such a emphasis on toughness, on mental toughness. And I tell you what, going back to what you asked me about how hard this was to get accomplished from IP to show on network. And I was thinking, like, man, how in the world, golly, how did I get this done? And I just thought, I'm like, ever since I was this high, being raised by my dad and then going and playing for Coach Saban, it's like, you're just taught to do the hard thing, man, and really with no reward, right? Like, I was a walk-on. There was nothing promised to me. You come here and you earn it. And so, I think the similarities there, between Coach Bryant and Coach Saban are, man, starkly similar, bro. They are just, I think, almost one and the same. And I'll tell you this, having learned from my dad and hearing from my dad about the character, the compassion and love that Coach Bryant had, both of these men were just equal parts that tough guy, but it came from a place in their heart of love and compassion of, I want to see you be great. And I'm willing to push you as far as you're willing to go to be great. And Dad, you should tell that story tell the story to Will about your freshman year when Coach Bryant sat you down. What gave you that confidence as a freshman to say, man, I can go play here? Because Will, people don't know my dad was 5'9", 150 pounds at Alabama and busting heads and being All-American and a baller,
Yeah.
I tell you, Will, being around, playing for Coach Bryant and being around Coach Saban for 17 years, what I love to tell people that about the two men that they both had this character trait is their love for the game and their love for their players. Coach Saban, he had that same type of love Coach Bryant had for us. The thing that you knew about Coach Bryant, Will, from day one was he loved you as a person. I'm 18 years old. I'm a freshman there, 1979. We've been in camp. It's August. We're in camp for about 4 weeks back then. And about 2 weeks into camp, after the second practice, I come into the locker room, and I got a pink sticky note on my locker. Those old pink sticky notes. And basically on the note, it said, Coach Bryant want to see you. I'm sitting there like, man, well, I don't want to see him, especially one-on-one. I didn't, you just had that fear of it. And so I go up to his office on the third floor of the Coliseum, and the secretary said, have a seat. He'll be with you in a minute, long minute. Door opens. I walk in, and it's like I have a Kodak moment of this. Coach Bryant smoking a Chesterfield cigarette, one of those that don't have a filter. And he's putting it in his ashtray, murmured some words for me to sit on his couch. I sat on the couch, and the couch didn't have any legs on it, so your bottom was hitting the floor, and you was looking up at him. he was looking down at you, and his first words to me were, you can play here at the University of Alabama. And if you knew anything about that 79 team, that 78 team won the national championship, and most of those guys were coming back. And I'm sitting there, he says, so when he says I could play, I'm thinking, yeah, when my turn comes. His next words were, you could play this year. If I'm talking to a big group, I say, and boy, did I. And that 10-minute conversation, him investing 10 minutes into me, I walked in that room 5'9", Will. I walked out 6'9".
Look at that.
And when Coach Bryant told me I could play, nothing else mattered. I was going to go out each and every day and prove him right.
Yeah. That's awesome. I want to ask you guys both this. I've talked about this. I used to talk sports on a daily basis exclusively. Now I talk more news and politics, but there's an overlap here. And it's this. When I see Coach Saban, and you used a word earlier, Jeremiah, and we hear this word a lot, so it's a little bit, it can sound cliched, but it has a ton of meaning. And the word you used was execute. So I've had this theory that I've talked about, like football's a different sport than other sports. It's different than basketball. It's different than soccer, all of which success will be determined to some extent by a system, not just an individual. But in those sports, an individual has the ability to sometimes impose his will on others. That's less so in football. Not that it's absent, but less so. Because it requires all those men on the field, like Bill Belichick used to say, to do your job, to execute your job. When the moment matters, you do what you're supposed to do. And sometimes if you freelance and do your own thing because you're great, you could actually hurt the entire operation. And it seems to me that Coach Saban, for sure, because he's one I would have paid attention to. I'm too young to have, outside of read about Coach Bryant. It's like he's changed offensive coordinators. He's changed defensive coordinators. He's changed everything. And then the players, obviously. What he was able to do, Caleb, was on a year-in, year-out basis, whether or not it's because he broke them down and built them up or whatever, he got everybody. And by the way, the reason there's overlap, I think it's the most like the military. I think football is the most militaristic sport there is. You have to become a unit, and you have to execute your job. That's what we have to figure out how to do together. What do you think of that theory, Caleb?
No, I agree. I think about the level of accountability when you talk about that. I think it's a level of accountability, and you see it you see it flow from the top down. I will never forget the first time I saw Coach Saban lay into an assistant coach. Like, you know what I mean? I'm a freshman and I
Yeah.
see him lay into a position coach. I'm like, oh yeah, this is no joke. Like he's going to get out. He's going to demand a result, Will, out of every single body who is in that organization. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter if you were the nutritionist. It didn't matter if you were the trainer, you know, in the training room. There was a standard, right, of excellence that he demanded out of everyone. And he says it all the time. He talks about how greatness and mediocrity, it cannot coexist. It can't. And I saw it happen to guys. I saw guys come in my freshman year that just didn't last. It just, it hit that system that he created. It weeded people out. And I can't, man, I literally can't think of like where my life would have, what turn it would have gone if I had not have chose to go to Alabama in those 4 years. It felt like the military, right? And I
Right.
honestly, obviously I understand it, it's not, and I appreciate our, men and women in the service, but the demand was just, it was out of this world. And then, I can't even imagine compared to what, my dad went through. But yeah, I would say, in conclusion, like the accountability, the level of accountability that was expected there was what I believe helped us win 2 national championships. Because it's not only, you don't want to let your coach down, and you want to keep your job on the field, but it's like you don't want to let your teammates down. You know what I mean? That was what mattered, I know, on our winning teams.
So the layup question from me for you guys would be, tell me how Coach DeBoer is similar to these guys. I'm not going to give you the layup question, which, by the way, I should apologize to you guys and all the Crimson Tide fans out there. Last week when I had Coach DeBoer on, I didn't do this, but I have to take accountability. We bumped in with a shot of Auburn. It's like the only live shot we had in the state of Alabama was of Auburn. And here comes Coach DeBoer right in off that introduction, which I apologize to him for in real time. So the non-layup version of this question.
You handled it well, Will.
I got to own it. It's an unforgivable sin. So I'll go to you, Jeremiah. I guess I'll try to make it a less of a layup question. How is Coach DeBoer different from Coach Saban and Coach Bryant?
I would say he understands the generation of athletes in the culture and how you're to communicate with them to get the most out of them based on how they've been, our culture, how they've been raised, what's in the culture. How do you, versus when I grew up and what was in the culture, and more freedom today in the culture, more things are kids experience, when you just look at things technologically.
Shot.
So with all
froze
of that,
up there. You froze up for 1 second, Jeremiah. That's okay. We got you. Go ahead.
Okay. So how do you, the game hadn't changed. You're still blocking, tackling. It's a hard game. Like you said, it's a militaristic type. So how can you encourage an athlete to go out and do a game that's very difficult and pursue excellence at it? And I think that's where he, based on his age and just the age that he is, and being able to transcend from or look at, what it was back when, how he grew up versus today. And he has the wisdom to be able to say, hey guys, I am going to give you more of a leadership role. I see that with how he conducts himself in his relationship with the players, and he gives the players a lot of freedom to step up and be leaders. Whereas back when we played USA or even with Coach Saban, this is Coach Saban's team, this is Coach Bryant's team. Coach DeBoer is saying, hey, man, this is your team. And I'm looking for the leaders that want to do that. And I just think that is where we're at in our culture. And he has the wisdom to be able to navigate that and to encourage young men to step up and be leaders.
So, Caleb, which, by the way, everything just described by Jeremiah can be seen on The Tide That Binds, Inside Alabama Football, which is on Fox Nation. I'm going to go back to the first answer you gave me, Caleb, and I told you I had some follow-ups. I'm really curious. Walk-on. I think you said you're the first walk-on in the family, right? You said your brothers were recruited.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes you really interesting to me. I mean, there's a different mentality and a different, maybe because you were two brothers and a father in the program, it wasn't quite the normal walk-on experience, or maybe it was, but I mean, I was a walk-on to, I was a walk-on to a college sports team. It's different than we asked you to come here. You know what I mean?
100%.
I'm just curious how that motivated you, even Caleb motivated you into what you're doing today. I'm curious if it didn't play a role today. Here you are doing something post-career, really impressive, and maybe your brothers are as well. But, I just think that's a different kind of guy, the walk-on.
Yeah, and I think it kind of plays into that that thought I was talking about earlier of like, I would say that going from like the mentality you have to have to go and be a walk-on at any level in any sport, it is, you got to be a little crazy, because you're like believing like, okay, one day, I'm gonna get the scholarship, or I'm gonna get some playing time or whatever. And so your work ethic is just, I mean, it's doggish, man. It is relentless. It's tenacious. And that's just how I was, because you're not somebody that they're looking at, right? They're not looking for you to come and contribute on Saturday in a way that their scholarship guys are, right? And so, you're there to prepare those guys. So for me, I mean, I remember when I got adjusted to being there, and just how hard, college is, that level change from high school to college, and especially going to Alabama. Man, once I got adjusted, I didn't say it got easier. Once I got adjusted, and you're guarding Julio Jones every day in practice, and you're having to give Julio Jones a legitimate look, right? It isn't we're going 50%. It isn't we're going halfway. It's like, no, we're going 100%. And Julio, matter of fact, he preferred that I would guard him at practice, because I was out there like, man, look, I understand my role. I bought into what I need to do, and I took it serious. Well, we would have walk-on meetings. You know what I mean? We would like give legitimate looks. We wanted to really be great. So anyway, for me, translating to this business now, and I started as an actor, right? And that's just a beast in itself, because it really is, it sort of relates, right? You're doing all of this work in auditions, and you're going in these auditions, and like, man, 99 times out of 100 is going to be no, right? It's like you're not getting this payoff, so you're doing a lot of work for minimal reward. And that just did something to me. And so when it translated over to producing and getting this done, man, it was like 2 years of working relationships, doing pre-production, building, and all of those things, figuring out how we wanted to do this before we actually got a yes, right, from the university. Right. And once we got the yes, Coach Saban retired. So then it was like I had to start all the way over again in that process with, a new administration basically. But, all of the work we did up to that point is what gave us the credibility to go in there and for Greg Byrne and Coach DeBoer to allow us to come in and do something that hadn't been done in 17 seasons.
Yeah, you said something that really resonates with me there, Caleb. First of all, that mentality of the walk-on, it's like you got to have enough confidence to believe that you can do this, whatever it is you want to do, and enough lack of ego to deal with what you just like.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's going to let you know that you can't. So it's a weird combination of a lack of ego, but a high level of confidence. And then I've always said this about my career. I never cared about the ratio. I'll take 99 no's for the one yes. It's no problem.
Yeah,
because all I
absolutely.
need is the one yes.
That's all you need.
Ratio
is the
doesn't
one.
matter.
That's right.
Yeah, right. So I think that's really cool, man. I think your personal story and bringing this project together is really cool, as is the project itself. The Tide That Binds, Inside Alabama Football. You hear a lot of the kind of stories that these two fine gentlemen have shared with us today, which speaks really highly, if there wasn't enough already, speaking really highly of University of Alabama football. So Caleb and Jeremiah Castille, thank you guys so much for being with me today and sharing these stories.
Thank you, Will. Enjoyed it.
Hey, we appreciate it, Will. Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Take care. All right, everybody check it out. Inside Alabama Football, The Tide That Binds, Inside Alabama Football. It's up on Fox Nation right now. Hey, speaking of sports, the guys and I were talking. ESPN has dropped Major League Baseball, losing a huge national platform for one of the four biggest sports in America. So what's left for us together? What do we discuss? What's left when it comes to sports in the community water cooler? Next on the Will Cain Show. What's left at the community water cooler? It's the Will Cain Show. Terrestrial radio across this great United States of America. Always available, Spotify, Apple, for download and subscription. And always Monday through Thursday right here at Fox News YouTube and Fox News Facebook. All right, the story is that ESPN last week announced they have parted ways with Major League Baseball. They will no longer be airing Major League Baseball games, leaving us without opportunities, I guess, to talk about things like the New York Yankees doing away with their facial hair policy. No beards in the past. 2 days couldn't have played for the Yankees.
Nope, I tried, but didn't work out.
Do you think the Yankees have loosened this policy right when the beard? Do you think is the beard going to go away? Is it out? Like
in baseball,
I was a beard guy for just in the world in America.
Nah, definitely not.
We've got our first vice presidential beard since 1928.
I sort of feel like the beard, and of course I did the beard for about 5 years, and then I stopped because of the
it's better without
the Yankee policy at Fox.
Yeah,
way better.
There's a good Instagram going around about the debate for men. It's like, you're not there yet 2 days, but like people, this is one of the reasons people accuse me of dyeing my hair, which I don't, is that my beard is pretty gray, but my hair, my head, the hair on my head is not. So it's like, okay,
not the tips.
You grow the beard and you look, what is it? More in shape and chiseled, right?
Yeah.
But with the gray, you look older. Or do you shave the beard and you look fatter but younger? So it's fatter and younger versus older and cooler.
Depends how long your beard is, too. Like, I'm going gray in my beard. I don't care.
I can't see it right now. What's up, tinfoil?
I don't understand this policy change because the in facial hair right now in baseball is the mustache. Like you see Spencer Strider and Paul.
It's back.
Yeah, I mean, all these guys have mustaches.
Well, what happened with that was a bunch of girls on TikTok said they found the mustaches hot, so now every guy
from the movie Top Gun Maverick. That's what happened. Ever since Top Gun Maverick came out, the mustache is back.
It's like Riley
Miles
Green
Teller.
did it.
Everything is
Morgan Wallen.
Everything is cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
It's all cyclical. You know, I mean, the mustache was in the 80s. My dad was a mustache guy.
Mine too.
Tom Selleck in the 80s. You know,
Don Mattingly.
Yeah.
So the Yankees allowed mustaches. They didn't allow beards. So Mattingly could have a mustache, but no beard.
And Aaron Judge had a great quote about this. He goes, if you didn't come to the Yankees just because of that policy, you shouldn't be a Yankee. Is what it is.
Would the Yankees allow you to do what Tinfoil's doing? Could you do a goatee, or was it only a mustache?
No.
I think that'd be a little too much for the Yankees.
Didn't David Wells have one on the Yankees?
Oh, yeah.
I think David Wells had one.
It was small, though. It was real small.
Let's see.
You'd have to, like, quarter size
By the
that
way,
thing.
The goatee's got just stick around, Patrick. 5 years, the goatee's in. Within 5 years.
No.
The goatee was 90s. When I was in college,
Yeah, you're right.
the entire water polo team had goatees. I didn't. I should amend that.
Know. Sorry.
I'm gonna amend that. Everybody that could have a goatee had a goatee.
What about what do you call it? Sideburns. Were you a sideburns guy ever?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, but that doesn't feel like I wasn't doing a thing. You know what I mean? Like
not like mutton chops.
Well, like now you say that. Luke Perry on 90210 had sideburns, and then we all had sideburns.
It was like right here.
Yeah, just kind of towards the bottom of your ear.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a long, shaggy sideburn type thing. It was just a
extension of your hair.
Whatever. What's normal on that? Like I go about a notch down. Is what I do on my sideburn.
Turn to the
like,
side.
You know what I mean? It's not. It's like.
Yeah, that's normal. Yeah, that's what a hairdresser will do without you asking.
Right. You don't ever make that choice when you have a beard.
No, sir.
Yeah, I think that the Yankees are doing this. Right. I think the beard's going to go away. I think the beard. The beard wasn't a thing in the 90s and 80s. Definitely was not. Maybe in the 70s, the beard was the thing.
Well, they instituted the policy in 1975 when, like, the 70s beards were really, really scraggly.
Yeah.
If you look back at
like
all
biker,
pictures.
like biker beards, like the long,
call it like Kenny Powers type.
Yeah.
Kenny Powers had the goatee though.
He did.
Yeah, he didn't.
But like the hair, the back hair was scraggly.
Who was that pitcher who had the dyed black beard on the Giants? What's his name? He threw like a million miles an hour. Brian Wilson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's a beard the Yankees would
be okay
like
down
with,
to here.
Because the policy is well kept. So as long as it's like.
My high school baseball coach instituted this, and we thought he was ridiculous. We're playing high school baseball, blacks.
Well, you got a lot of those in high school baseball.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't have done a beard in high school, so it wouldn't have been a problem. I couldn't do a beard in college.
Just physically?
Wouldn't have been a problem. No, I could not do a beard in college.
Huh.
The beard was a very hipster style, back, what, in the teens. So I think that it's phased out to the mustache, and now the goatee's probably next.
The beard in the 90s was like a high school or a youth pastor look. Like
really?
Like what you're doing. Yeah, what you're doing today's, that was definitely like a youth pastor look.
Pastor Dan.
I literally was a youth pastor or a youth.
Were you really?
Yeah, he's still in the Catholic Church. Yeah, I was a peer minister.
Full of surprises. Full of surprises. Yeah. So ESPN cancels their rights to Major League Baseball. Okay, I almost feel like it's a trailing indicator. I think, look, having hosted a show on ESPN for 5 years, a national sports talk show, we knew what you could and couldn't talk about that would rate. And baseball didn't rate. It just didn't rate. Nationally, people don't want to hear about baseball. And if we're being real, they also don't really want to hear about anything outside of NFL quarterbacks. It's not even just the NFL. You can't break down a Jaguars-Dolphins game and expect someone outside of Florida to care. They do not care. And unless you're talking about Trevor Lawrence versus Tua Tagovailoa and who you have rated higher, right? Then, okay, they can get in on it. And it's just, it represents the total fracturization of our attention. And I think this is a thing for sports going forward. Because I know that a lot of media companies are very interested in sports as a content production. You know what I mean? More podcasts on sports. But I think you have a real challenge thinking about what's going to appeal and what kind of audiences you want to pull. But in a way, I'm not that upset about this. I don't know how you guys consume, but I think I told you guys this on a phone call the other day. I know the Texas Rangers minor league system. I couldn't name you many of the Yankee starters, like their starting rotation. I couldn't name it. I know the Dallas Stars prospects, but I mean, if we did a game right now, could I name all the NHL hockey teams? I might be able to do that, but that's going to be tough. You know, the NBA has a little bit more of a national pull, but my point is you care about what you care about, and what you care about is local when it comes to sports. And I think college is the best example of that. You really, really care about your college team, but my eyes roll every time Patrick brings up Florida State. What's up, Tinfoil? Go ahead, Tinfoil.
I think you have a really good point there. One thing that I didn't really think about is the fact that the baseball rights were only for like one night a week versus the NBA rights, which are for multiple nights a week. So it made a lot more financial sense to recoup your investment.
Well, and think about what they aired. They aired Yankees, Dodgers, and maybe a World Series champion, right? Meaning like, okay, I can do this. Who won? The Rangers won it a year ago. Who won them? Who is the sitting World Series champion?
They beat the New York Yankees.
You named them.
You already said it.
They beat the Dodgers. The Dodgers.
They cheated.
Yeah.
Oh, so if it's not the Dodgers, let's say it is the Rangers. They would have got one of those, maybe just one, by the way, of those ESPN games. So that's what it became. Yankees, Dodgers, and a game or two from the World Series champion. Maybe the Cubs got in ESPN's wheelhouse. And the Red Sox. Go ahead, 2 days.
No, especially with watching on TV, being in New York, I can't barely watch a Yankee game if I don't have cable in the Yes Network. So I have to pay for a separate service to watch Yankee games in New York, which is ridiculous. I mean, so the ESPN would have them randomly, or on a random Thursday, it'll be on Amazon Prime or something like that. So it's ridiculous with the TV rights and trying to find a game.
I wonder if the streaming services will pick up, how Major League Baseball will play out with the streaming services.
Yeah.
We had Brad Alberts, the president of the Dallas Stars, on the Cain on Sports Friday show, and it was fascinating to talk about how they're going to be distributing Stars games. And by the way, because they were part of the whole Bally's bankruptcy, right? But so were a ton of baseball teams, and all of them are trying to figure out how to air their games going forward. And this is back to the fracturization thing. You got to find your local market that cares about you and figures out how to consume you and how you monetize them. And by the way, that's also the old model of you make your revenue from TV. They're going to have to find new revenue streams. This is where gambling comes in. And I'm not sure gambling is or should be the answer. But this is why they're also focused on gambling, because they have to replace the business model that's been there for half a century, which is television fuels sports revenue.
It's true.
Yeah, the ESPN president, the old one, said it, or old CEO said it on our show, that live games is the only real business model there anymore.
But that point is, what live games? What live games? By the way, that was on our Super Bowl episode here of the Will Cain Show. And I was with somebody the other day, and women's volleyball came up, and I told that story. I said, yeah, the former president of ESPN, he told me the best undiscovered sport when it comes to entertainment and rights is women's volleyball. And they're like, it's true. It's really entertaining. It's really good. I was like,
what's the demographic breakdown on that?
Yeah, who's watching that?
I don't know.
I do.
But I also think it's symptomatic of our attention, our fractured attention. There's just too many entertainment options, you know? I just did a new TV series, by the way, that I really liked. You guys ever heard of Taboo?
Yeah, I love it. Tom Hardy.
You watched it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tom Hardy is on my list of guys. I've realized if he's in it, I'm probably in.
Agreed.
I just like watching that dude act. I think he is captivating. And the show's, what do you think? It's a B?
I didn't finish it, to be honest. So it didn't catch my attention enough to finish. It was C+ probably.
Well, it catches my attention because of Tom Hardy, and it's 1814 England, and I just like that time frame, you know. Yeah. And it's about like
it's rough
adventurers and explorers. Roughly, it's about that.
It's a rough time to live.
And so it's just, yeah, it's rough. What did they do about their teeth? When did we get
They still don't do anything about their teeth. Sorry.
When did we get to modern hygiene, oral hygiene? When did we get to that? I want to do a deep dive on that. Because those teeth were rough back then. And like, what were they doing? Some horsehair toothbrushes?
Yeah.
Did they have toothpaste? What were they doing? And were they doing it once a week? Did they all have horrific breath and gum disease? These are the questions I want to know the answer to.
Mid-19th century, toothpaste in tube form becomes more widely available, allowing for easier application. 18th century, the first commercially produced toothbrush is credited.
18th century, so that's the 1700s?
Yeah, 18th century.
Do you
1815,
think,
the concept of dental floss was used.
So let's just rewind the clock to American Revolution, 1776. So
the smell.
Guy and girl like each other. Guy and girl like each other, right?
Ugh.
Do they just set breath aside? Is this like a thing? Like it's not a thing because everybody has horrible
Because everyone does.
breath?
Because they were drinking so much that it doesn't, you don't.
Yeah, it kills all the bacteria in your mouth. Yeah.
Without
you didn't have
alcohol.
really clean water sources and stuff, so there was a lot more alcohol consumption.
It's like if two people smoke cigarettes, right? The other person doesn't notice that you're smoking, the smell of smoke, because you're both doing it. So you both get used to the smell, and it's the same thing with that. I'm sure.
So they didn't think, I love her, but her breath stinks. Well, but everybody's breath stinks. They
So
didn't
does
think
mine.
that. They just didn't.
Yeah.
They just didn't think it stunk because
everything
they were
stunk.
nose deaf. Yeah, they were nose deaf because they all stunk.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Get Chris Stefano to talk about it again. We'll bring him back. Oral hygiene history.
Yeah. Yeah. And general hygiene. Like in Taboo, they're dirty all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much did you bathe in the Old West? Once a week? Like, that's got to be horrible.
The first shower was invented and patented in England in 1767. It was a hand pump system. So before that, no showers.
They weren't a standard feature in homes until the 1950s.
Yeah.
My goodness,
Or
man.
just to go to work.
But they were taking baths.
Yeah.
They were taking baths.
Like community baths, too. Go to like the local YMCA.
Imagine that water in the Roman baths.
Yeah.
Wow. Our ratings just.
I'm just thinking
No,
about
I'm kidding.
romance. I'm thinking about romance back then, not just the oral hygiene, but again, like I was thinking about this when I was watching the show. Like you ever seen the Old West shows where they go into town and they get a bath and then they hook up, Did they do that before the hookup or after the hookup? Do you know what I mean? Like
both, I would hope.
When do you take? Well, they were expensive and time consuming. The baths, they had to fill them up with warm water. So I don't know. These are things I need some answers to.
Yeah. Back to
we need
ESPN
to get
baseball.
a new
Today at 4 p.m. on the Fox News channel.
dive into hygiene in the 1800s.
The E block.
Yep. Too bad for Major League Baseball. In conclusion, too bad for Major League Baseball and ESPN.
Yeah. See it.
All right, that's going to do it for today here on the Will Cain Show. We'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place, same digital streaming channels, same radio stations. We hope to see you again next time.